Those who are outside, could you join us, please? Okay. You're welcome to the PDP. Welcome to the PDWG session. And the last time we had this gathering was in Côte d'Ivoire. Last time we had this gathering was in Côte d'Ivoire, and I think it's good to note that there's a remarkable improvement in the number of participation. I hope the number will not reduce as we continue in this session. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is to introduce myself. By the way, my name is Sheon Ojedeji, and I work for a federal university in Nigeria called Federal University of Ekiti, and I'm serving as one of the co-chairs for Afrinic PDWG Working Group. I have with me Ernest, who also is a policy manager for Afrinic, and he is going to also introduce himself later. The agenda is, this same agenda was sent like a few weeks ago to the mailing list, and it's the same thing that we are actually presenting here also. So we have 3 sessions. We'll have the session for which we have right now, which we go through the PDP process, and then we'll also look at the status of the policies in our region. Look at status of discussions on the mailing list. The mailing list has been relatively silent. We'll try and see some of the discussions that were made on the list since the time we left Côte d'Ivoire up till now. We'll also look at the policy discussions or proposals under discussion in other regions. So that's what we'll do for the first session. Then we'll go to details in the second session by looking at the IPv4 allocation proposal and also the WUIS update process policy proposal. These are currently the policies that are available, that are currently under discussion in our region. And we'll then also look at the status of report of the resource policy manual report. I'm sure some of us who are in this room will remember the history behind the RPM status, report document rather. The third session will basically be to discuss some things that we feel should be implemented on the PDP, that is the policy development process document. We'll propose it to the community and we would like to hear your views about it. Also, there's going to be election of the co-chair during this meeting and during this particular session, and of course we have the open mic. So before I continue in this part of the agenda, I would like to indicate how this is going to happen. So I'll present my first 2 sections of the presentation, and then we take 2 or 3 questions, and then next we present, and we'll take 2 or 3 questions. Then we can then have a general question session. So the PDP, of course, some of us in this room, we are used to knowing PDP to mean different things in a different context. Some who are from Nigeria will know PDP is a political party. while some who are here in Djibouti, we know PDP is a building. So we at Afrinic know PDP to be a policy development process, and is what actually determine and define how we run or come across, create policies within this region. The URL to find the URL for the policy is located at that space. And then, of course, the summary of the PDP and what it's all about can be found at that URL. There's one thing that is very important in the PDP, at least in the process of creating the policy, and that is those three things: openness, transparency, and fairness. During the global update, you will recall that Alan tried to explain how the global policy tried to gather comments from the community before they were able to interpret the particular content or particular section of the global policy. And that shows that the community is involved in, they are involved to determine how their resources are being handled, okay? So it's just a way of understanding that if we don't participate in this process, then we don't have anybody to blame. This is a simple flowchart of how the process starts. That is, if you need to submit a proposal. By the way, if you need to submit a proposal, you don't need to carry any particular type of portfolio. You can come from anywhere in the world or even out of this planet, so long as that you can create this text in the way that has been defined in the process. So anybody may submit a proposal. You post it to the RPD list. There's a mailing list where policies, proposals are being discussed, where policy issues are being discussed, where policy implementation processes are being discussed. So you post it to that list by following certain templates that has been provided. The Afrinic staff will also be available to assist you in aligning or in adjusting your template, not your content, in adjusting your content, but not changing your content to the template that has been provided. So the proposal goes to the list and is discussed. It must be sent 4 weeks before, so that we then discuss at the face-to-face, and then attempt to see whether we could get a consensus for it and see whether it could. So if there is no consensus, it goes back to the list. If there is consensus, it proceeds to the last call period. The last call period is simply the period where there's an opportunity to discuss the already discussed proposal on the mailing list. So what we are doing at the last call is we are saying, okay, some people may not be able to participate at the face-to-face. You still have the opportunity to make your last comment, or maybe some people that participated at the face-to-face have one reason or the other to change their mind about the policy, or so on and so forth. So the last call period is the opportunity to do that, to discuss it, and then the role of the chair or the co-chairs is to observe if there is no opposition to the initial agreed consensus at the meeting. So once that is determined, then we then take that policy proposal and we'll prepare our own report. That is the chair. The two co-chairs prepare the report working with the AFNIC staff, and we'll propose to the board to ratify the proposal. Okay? And that is where you have ratified by board of directors. So once the board of directors ratify the proposal, AFNIC then takes the proposal. So at that point in time, once it is ratified, it is no longer, so it's a policy, right? So it's then implemented by AFNIC staff. Currently, the implementation period is 6 months from the point by which the proposal has passed last call. So from the point that a proposal passes last call, that is when the 6 months start counting. I think it's very important we take note of this because there's going to be discussion in this regard as we proceed in the agenda. So this is where you could find the details of the RPD. You could subscribe to the mailing list. The mailing list is open to anybody. You can subscribe and then you can be part of this discussion. Like what during the global policy discussion in February, that was the mailing list where all this discussion happened. So you can just be part of it and start so that you'll be updated about what is happening in our region and globally. Public policy meeting is like what we're having now, open to everybody. You are free to share your views. You are free to contribute in your own way. Thank God, and good to know that there's language translation. So you can say it in either French or you can also contribute in English. Currently, yeah, so that's the status of the two co-chairs. We currently have myself and Emil. Emil Melando is the second co-chair, and his tenure started in 2012, and his tenure is ending, will end at this particular event, which is 2014. Emil is absent in this session because of reasons that is beyond his control. So, submitting the proposal, this is basically what I've been saying all this while in the past. So this is what you do. Anyone can submit. You submit it to the mailing list. You receive support from AFNIC on how to better present the content of your proposal, and then all the information you require that could help you improve on the content of your proposal, you could ask staff directly, and they'll provide the information to you. Yeah. So this is the process by which we carry out. These are the things that we'll do before the public policy meeting, which is the face-to-face meeting we are having right now. So we'll propose a place. The proposal is placed on the agenda. It's sent to the RPD list. We don't change anything. We make sure we don't change anything unless there is absolute need to do so. And then the PDWG chair determines whether consensus is reached at the meeting. And if there's no consensus, then it goes back to the mailing list for further discussion. And if there is consensus, it goes to the mailing list as a last call. And the minutes, however, I think it's important to clarify what consensus means. Consensus could be in favor or against. So if there is consensus to be in favor, that means that it's going to make it to the to the last call period. But if it is against, it's most of the time we just advise the author to either withdraw the policy or represent it in a more defined manner according to what's based on the comments of the community. So it's community driven. The community determines whether a proposal should fly or not. So a community determines whether a proposal should be implemented or not. Last call. Yeah, so this is the last call period. This is what happens during the last call. Yeah, basically the repetition of what I've said, so there's no need to repeat all those. Approval period, this is the process to approving a policy. There's consensus, report of discussion, and feedback. The draft policy shall be ratified by the African Board of Directors, blah, blah, blah. And the implementation is done. And yeah, so that's the 6 months part. So, so once the last call is done with, then the implementation countdown starts. Conflict resolution, yeah, so this is very important aspect of the PDP. So there may be, at times, there may be a need to challenge or question some of the outcomes of a particular discussion. There's a process for it, so you can decide to make objections and then try to present it in a manner that has been defined by the process. Yeah. So status of the policy proposals under discussion in African region. These are the current proposals. So what this page is showing policy proposals that are not under discussion, but they are yet not implemented, and showing policy proposals that are under discussion. So the first one is this, which is the one that talks about remove requirements to announce entire V6. The status is that it's been ratified by board and it has been implemented by staff. So this is done with, right? We are presenting this particular one because the last time we met, it was still under discussion. It has just passed last call, then it received consensus in the last meeting, and then now it has been implemented. So this other one is it's been ratified by board. However, it's yet to be implemented by staff. So so if you look at some of the text, the URL to the proposal is there. So what it does is that it seeks to allow assignment of a Pi IVV4/24 prefix to be used with any card services and GPRS roaming exchange. The last line, I'm going to skip to the last line. So its implementation extension was requested by staff. So this particular policy exceeded the 6 months limit that was set to implement the policy. And because of that, before the 6 months expired, staff requested that there should be an extension. So the extension was, they gave the reasons for that, and it was due to the fact that there was an upgrade that they were doing, which they would like the policy to be implemented after the completion of the upgrade. So these are some of the issues that needs to be put into consideration. The other reason why it is also late could also be that one of the reasons is also that there was delay in the timing of ratifying the policy by the board. So these are some of the issues that we'll probably perhaps need to discuss. We'll be discussing later under the PDP modification suggestions. The same thing happened to this particular policy. It's currently ratified by board, but not yet implemented. Reasons for the same reason. So this policy, I think this should be the third. Is it the third or the third meeting, right? I think this policy should be the third hearing, I mean face-to-face meeting where we're discussing this particular policy. And it's about academic IPv4 allocations. That's the URL where you can find the latest version. It's currently under the third draft, and then the proposal makes it possible for higher education institutions to obtain V4 address space without a detailed network plan, using a simple formula based on the number of staff and students. So the proposal proposes some specific ways to calculate the need, the number of IP addresses that may be required, and then it also indicates how the ratio per user basis should be done. The proposal also attempts to use this proposal to encourage deployment of IPv6. The second proposal is about WUI's update process. That's the URL for the proposal. The proposal sets a process towards ensuring that Afrinic WUI's database is up to date. Afrinic staff to conduct a database information validation once a year, and so on and so forth. So this is the summary of the proposal. This particular proposal will be discussed in this face-to-face meeting. However, we will not be observing consensus for this particular proposal. Reason being that it has not been discussed at length, I mean, within the time limit that has been stated on PDP on the mailing list. So we won't be observing consensus for this, but we will take note of all the discussions that we make here as if they have been made on the mailing list. So we'll take note of the discussions, and it will really, really influence and determine how we view the consensus in future. So at this junction, I'm gonna pause and take 2 or 3 questions on these 2 slides, two presentations or topics that I have made. If there are no questions, then I will go sit down and Ernest will come. Oh, good.
My name's Douglas Onyango. My first question is about this policy. You just mentioned that you will not be observing. I'm sure that means you won't be drawing any consensus on it. However, I know that this policy has been on the mailing list longer than the stipulated time period. My understanding of our process is that the version that was available at least 14 days we should be able to discuss it in this meeting. And if there is any chance that consensus can be drawn upon on it, I think still we should go ahead and do that, unless, of course, the community feels otherwise. My second question, which maybe I seek clarity on, is the policies that you say were ratified but are still not being implemented. First, I was not aware that Afrinic is having challenges implementing them because of maybe one or another technological issue. My question is, was the community made aware of this? I am not. And going forward, how should we try and make sure there is information available on when there's limitations on the Secretariat's ability to actually implement a policy. Probably we need to write it down, or we need to create some precedent on how to handle this kind of situations, because when we ratify a policy, our expectation is at that point AFRINIC has the capacity to actually implement it. It is my recollection also that during the course of the policy development, AFRINIC actually presents an assessment. I do not recall them saying that we will not be able to implement this policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, Alan, please take note. I said 2 or 3. Andrew, if your comment can wait for the. Okay. All right, if you can, please can you just summarize and maximize the time? Yeah, go ahead, Alan.
Yes, my name is Alain Aina. Speaking on my personal capacity here, I want to ask, how do you guys as co-chair determine consensus?
Yeah, I'm Prince, so from University of Nigeria. I'm an individual. Now, I want to commend the work you've done so far on policy. My interest is regarding the higher education institutions. I can see there that there's a formula for allocating the IPv4, and you said full-time students plus full-time staff plus part-time students is 8 times 0.5. And then I want to ask, what of the part-time staff? Because universities, a lot of these universities have part-time staff who also use the universities or the institution's internet connection. So is there no provision for that?
Yeah, go ahead. And
Hi, Andrew Alston. I just wanted to concur with Douglas that it is my understanding that before a policy is ratified, AFRINIC makes a very clear presentation on what the limitations and challenges are on the policies, and if the policy has been ratified, then those considerations as presented by AFRINIC should have been taken into account then and there, and as such I cannot see how we can now be told after policy ratification that there are technical challenges that weren't seen.
okay, thank you, Andrew. Okay, so Andrew's comment and Douglas's seem to be similar, so I will try to take that first. Yes, we did send a mail to an update to the list, right, about the fact that staff requested for an extension of the implementation of the policy and the reason why they did that. However, in case if that reason is not detailed enough, maybe this is the time to ask staff to explain why they requested that. So I'm going to ask Ernest to say something about that, please. So at least it's clear that as the co-chair and or as our role, we have ensured that we notify the community. This is a process, right? It says, the guideline says that if there's a need for such, they should request it, and which was done before the time elapsed. Secondly, before I call Ernest to respond to that, let me try and respond to Douglas's second question about the WUI's policy. This policy, according to the process, there ought to be a minimum of 4 weeks to discuss the policy on the mailing list. you will recall that this policy was posted not quite long ago on the mailing list. However, if the community feels it will be difficult for us to actually say we should observe consensus here, especially since from the discussion on the mailing list, we also see that there have actually been different recommendations on how to update or how to improve on the text of this policy. So it should not be advisable, and it also, most importantly, is not in line with the process to observe consensus for a policy that is less than 1 month old. So that is the reason why we won't be observing consensus. Ordinarily, we shouldn't have even, we perhaps should not have even put it on the agenda. However, the co-chair, by reasoning, thinks it should be included so that we can at least get some discussions up at the face-to-face. So that is the reason why we won't be observing consensus, and I hope I have answered your question. Alan, how is consensus? What determines consensus? Well, that's a very important question. So there's the term we use mostly within this our environment, which is called rough consensus. So what we do is we observe the discussion, actually, and we see, based on the discussion that is happening on a particular topic, we see how much support or how much points people are raising that helps to either support the policy proposal or helps to go against the policy proposal. And we also do that for the face-to-face meeting, and we'll put in consideration of the discussion from the mailing list interactions. When there is no clear consensus, rough one, at least at the minimum, then when I say there is no clear consensus, or when there is no clear agreement or disagreement on the particular topic, so I don't be using consensus so that it doesn't become like confusing. Then we do what we do, we try to get a rough support or against. Usually we just do that for a show of hand, but we don't actually count the votes. So it depends on, we just take the rough overview of who supports this and who does not support this. So rough consensus is mainly based on the statements and the discussions that has been made on a particular proposal. So that is why it is important that if there's a policy proposal, people need to critique it, provide their comments, and it is on that comment that we are able to observe whether there's support for the proposal or not. So that is how we evaluate the discussion to determine consensus. I hope that attempt helps to clarify your question. Chris. Okay, Chris, you asked about the V4 policy. I would like you to hold on with that. That question will be answered during the discussion period of this particular policy. And I think the best person to answer this question should be the author. So during that discussion, the author will answer the question accordingly. So I'll call on Ernest to respond to the first question. Yes, please. When we finish this session, when Ernest finishes his presentation, there's going to be a general time to ask questions. Yeah.
Okay, this is in response to the questions from Andrew and Douglas regarding the delayed implementation of 2 proposals. Yeah, I would like to point out to everyone that the policy development process actually, we are not in breach of the PDP. The PDP clearly states that if the ratified proposals are going to be implemented with some delay, then the secretariat or the staff could ask for a waiver, okay? It is clearly stated in the PDP that a waiver shall be requested regarding the delay of the implementation of the proposals. And this is exactly what we did sometime in March. That's March 2014. The secretariat actually noticed that implementing these proposals might not happen according to the time that is stipulated in the PDP. So the announcement was sent to the mailing list, to the RPD mailing list. Those of you that are subscribed on it, you must have seen it. If you did not see that announcement, I'm happy to point you to the archives. Go through the archive on or around March 2014, you will see that announcement. It's clearly stated there, and the reason why the waiver was requested is also in that announcement. So just again to point out to Douglas, I think you said that we have failed to implement. No, we have not failed to implement. The proposals, the policies are going to be implemented. It's just that there is a delay, which was explained right in that announcement. It went through the process. We informed the board, and the board duly sent this approval to the policy chairs, who informed the community about the delay. So we are not in breach of the PDP. There's just a delay in the implementation, and these proposals are right on track to be implemented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ernest. Douglas and Andrew, I hope that answers the question. Otherwise, hang on. If it doesn't, kindly just keep the questions or comments till after Ernest presents his presentation. So we'll then take all the comments. We'll open the floor for more comments. Thank you.
So as usual during these sessions, we try to inform the community about key issues that have been raised on the mailing lists after the recent AFRINIC meeting, after the recent face-to-face policy meeting, and up until the current meeting. So we pick out a few issues that we think are of interest, and that the community might find perhaps interesting to spur discussion about number resource management policy. So we'll quickly go through this. They are not arranged by date necessarily, the date at which they were posted on the mailing list. So if you have any questions, please feel free to raise any questions right after or during the question time. So one of the issues that popped up right after the last meeting was about the way AFRINIC applies so much scrutiny to those organizations that do request large IPv4 address requests. This issue was raised in Cote d'Ivoire, and whoever raised it was wondering why AFRINIC seems to take a longer time to process large IPv4 address requests from our members. Some of the response to this was that it's actually okay for AFRINIC to apply the greater scrutiny because as it was mentioned in one of the sessions in the morning, these days you're having quite a lot of fraud which has popped up as a result of the perceived value of IPv4 addresses and the fact that they are running out in the other registries. So yes, this was one of the things that was pointed out. And if greater scrutiny is applied to these, then naturally they will take a little more time to process by AFRINIC. And some folks also pointed out that this is a common business practice in most service industries. The more complicated or unusual a request is, then the longer the time it will take to process such a request. So you're free to air your feelings on that right during the question time. The other issue was out-of-region IPv4 address usage. And it was noted as a recommendation that AFRINIC should be applying scrutiny on requests that originate from offshore registered companies. Many offshore companies that have requested for space from AFRINIC usually tend to be registered in Seychelles and Mauritius. This is just an observation. And it was pointed out that most offshore companies, requests from offshore companies, might be an indication of possible fraud, as usually these might be taking out address space that they are requesting to use it out of the region. Again, this is not my observation. It's an observation that was pointed out on the mailing list just for the information of the community. And the feeling of whoever posted that comment was that, yes, it would be fine for us to apply scrutiny on requests that are originating from offshore companies because of the possibility of the fraud associated with them. Okay? Other folks noted that such requests that originate from offshore companies should be actually rejected altogether. This is on the mailing list. I'm just reporting what pointed out, what came up on the mailing list. I see, Andrew, you're looking at me with this look. Define offshore. Question time, please. Let's reserve this for question time, okay? Please. Issue 3. AFRINIC should move away from /29 IPv6 reservation mechanisms and adopt the sparse allocation or bisection mechanism. I think this issue was raised on the APNIC policy list, and somehow it was forwarded to our list, and I think a few comments came up on that. And one of the observations was that IPNIC and the other RIRs have already switched to this mechanism of allocating IPv6 address space, as it provides a much better and easier to understand framework for allocating and assigning IPv6 addresses than the current mechanism in place at AFRINIC. Back to the previous slide, Owen DeLong is present. He can talk more about this. I think Owen DeLong submitted a lengthy comment on this, and Owen, I see you here. During the comment time, you're free to perhaps expound on this. Issue number 4, AFRINIC does not have a policy for mergers, acquisitions, and resource transfers. This also popped up on the mailing list. I think one member was trying to get AFRINIC to do a merger of their operations, and they encountered some difficulties. So along the way, it was pointed out that the current document that handles mergers, acquisitions, and resource transfers, which AFRINIC uses, has never gone through the policy development process and is therefore not a policy. And there were a few questions about what the process is if changes are needed to that document. Since it's not a policy, should it go through the policy development process? That was an issue that was pointed out. Issue number 5, clarification on the correct values of the country attribute when registering IPv4 addresses in the WHOIS database. This also came up from somebody who was wondering when registering a set of IP addresses for their customers, what should be the country, what should be indicated for the country, where the infrastructure is located, where a customer chooses to be represented, or where a member organization is legally incorporated. And I think AFRINIC replied, pointing out that it's where the infrastructure consuming the IP addresses is located, And if customers are involved, where these customers are located. And if the community feels this needs to be talked about further, then please do raise it up. Issue number 6, define a policy that stipulates where IPv4 space will be used in or out of region. So this was in response to an inquiry by one of the posts about a /12 that was issued by Afrinic to a member that is clearly using it out of the region. Now, this statement might need a little bit of revision. It was the impression of the person who posted this email that the address space is used out of the region. So it's not the feeling of Afrinic or a conclusion of Afrinic or any of the Afrinic staff. So whoever pointed it, I think it was actually, he mentioned a /13, not a /12, that to them it was clearly used out of the region, and wondered how this was done. So discussions moved towards the need for a policy that would restrict space from being used out of the region. It was also a feeling that if a policy restricts out of region use, it may limit African organizations from growing their businesses outside Africa. It was also noted that before space is issued, Afrinic could try to establish that these entities are indeed African, not foreign. And this goes, again, points to offshore organizations. And it was also pointed out by some folks that IPv4 is no longer sustainable and the region could perhaps be looking at moving to IPv6 rather than clinging onto a dying protocol, which is IPv4. Then the last issue is the recent proposal that about the WHOIS database contact updates. This proposal was received from the author, suggesting a process that Afrinic could use to maintain contact information in the WHOIS database as up to date as possible. Now, this proposal had been brought by the same author about 1 year back at one of the meetings. However, Afrinic advised the author that they already had an internal project to do this activity, to have members' information and WHOIS contact information as updated as possible, and therefore it was not, a policy might not have been needed. However, somewhere along the line, Afrinic later advised that this internal activity did not yield much progress and requested the author to resubmit the proposal. So in the discussions, it's going to be discussed later this afternoon anyway, without wasting much time on it, but some timelines were suggested and requested so that progress can be measured. Afrinic shared the status of the internal activity, and I think that's all to report on this. So more on this will be in the afternoon on this particular proposal, because the author is going to talk about it in detail anyway. And that's it. That's all we'd like to share with you regarding the key issues that popped up on the mailing lists. If anybody feels there's something else, feel free to raise it. And I'd like to hand over back to Sean to do the moderation or questions. Thank you.